quick note about today's episode is we do have a discussion about female agency and the policing of such, as well as abortion rights, which I know for a lot of people is a very real and uncomfortable conversation that they might not want to listen to. So please view at your discretion, but it is a great chat that we have today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our March Author Nook. My name is Jordan H. Bartlett. I'm the author of Contest of Queens, Queen's Catacombs, and Queendom Come, and I'm joined today, yet again, with Meredith Lyons, and you may remember her from our episode, Meddling Phantoms and Not So Friendly Ghosts, where we chatted about her debut novel, Ghost Tamer, with fellow spooky author Helen Power. But today we'll be talking about her novel, A Dagger of Lightning. Welcome, Meredith!
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to chat about this book. You can see it just behind you there.
Yeah, so pretty.
Oh, so pretty. And it really is magic with spaceships, magic in
hmm
outer space, which I've never really read before. So it's a very unique story. And I'm so excited to dive in. But first things first, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
yeah, so I am originally from New Orleans and decided to move to Chicago right out of school to be an actor. And it was very cold. And while I was there, I did do the acting thing. And I also ran the Chicago Marathon a couple times. I became a competitive kickboxer and fighter. I did the Chicago Golden Gloves twice and fought in Paris for Team USA. I actually went to Montreal once because the Sabbat is very big up there and very pretty there. And then in spite of all of those things, I couldn't stay warm. And so I moved down to Nashville, where I now live with my husband and two panther-sized cats. And I just save all the swashbuckling for the page these days.
So, can you tell us a little bit more about Dagger of Lightning, which came out, I believe, last year, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
2025. Yeah, April 1st, almost a year. It's almost the anniversary.
Oh, April 1st,
Um,
no fool in there.
I know. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to tell everyone, like, it's not a joke. Um, but yeah, so Dagger of Lightning is about Imogen. She's 45. She's living her normal Earth life, kind of doing what society expects her to do, not necessarily what she wants to be doing. But she's fine. And then one day she's kidnapped by an alien prince while she's out on a run, and he decides she is going to fall in love with him. She is going to help his country win this hundreds-year-old war, and she's going to get like superpowers. And she's like, absolutely not. I co-sign none of this. And so she aligns with his younger, more tolerable brother, who we like, and she does start getting super powerful. And people do start taking notice. And she kind of realizes that if she doesn't decide who she wants, and what she wants to be, then she is going to become a powerless tool in this war.
Totally. And I love it too because we get, oh my gosh, the first few chapters of your book, I had this existential dread with Imogen because it's almost like Belle stayed in the little town, and then
Mm,
rather than singing, I want much more than this provincial life, she just starts singing, well, I guess the provincial life is where I'm at. And it was just so heartbreaking. Even the littlest things of, I should be excited because I've found someone who does love me and we get along great. It
mhm.
just felt so heavy. And then she gets abducted, and you're like, I'm not even sure that's better because she didn't ask for that either.
Yeah. No, she has a rough time.
Hmm. But it's
Yeah.
wonderful because we rarely get a protagonist that has so much life experience right off the get-go.
Right.
Like
And
she's
that's what I
lived
wanted.
her life. Yeah. Yeah. And can you tell me a bit more about that? Like what was your inspiration behind having this very worldly protagonist?
So when I conceived of Dagger, I was experiencing the first major injury of my 40s. And I had done nothing. I hadn't fallen, I hadn't been in an accident, I hadn't done anything but just continue to live my life. And just anyone who's under 40, just know it's coming for you. It's your body just decides you've been doing this way. for decades and it's wrong and we can't do it anymore. And it just breaks. And so I had to stop running for months. It was horrible. And so I was disassociating by reading fantasy books. So I would come up for air, to see to my corporeal needs. And I would reach for a glass of water or something and I'd be mad that it wouldn't like zoom into my hand. And I was like, why can't I have magical powers? Why can't I get super healing? And like, why can't I get kidnapped to the Fae and turned immortal and then not have to deal with any of this? And my brain goes, well, you're too old. Because in all of the stories, it's always a 19-year-old.
Yes, at the
And
latest too.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then somehow they're like in charge of like beings hundreds of years old and like they're just figuring out who they are as a person. And I was then I was more mad. And I was like, what if I took someone who actually had lived her life, experienced her body breaking down a little bit, and then got everything flipped. So you get that like, oh my God, nothing sore, like, wow. And all of that. And the like, oh, you're a prince? I don't give a fuck. Like kind of
Like
like
Shania Twain,
lived.
that don't impress me much.
Yes, exactly. So I was like, well, let's just see what happens if I put a middle-aged woman in a fantasy book. And that's pretty much what I did. And there is a hunger for it
Hmm. Yeah.
because women who are older than 25, nothing against anyone 25 or below, they are reading books. They are doing the book clubs. They are having the conversations. And
Hmm.
they are desperate to see themselves in the books.
Yes.
I remember being young. I remember specifically reading The Three Musketeers, loved The Three Musketeers. And the Queen was 27. And there was like a line in there. And I think I was like 25 or something when I was reading it, or 20, 24, 25. I read it many times, but I think in this particular instance, that line stuck with me. It was like she was 27. So to say in her prime. And I was like, oh, cool, I have a couple more years
Oh,
till
I
I'm
love
like in
that.
my prime,
Yeah.
like that mentality. But I always liked seeing people a little bit older than me in books because I was like, oh, cool, I can still do cool things.
Hmm.
And so I think people really like, because I'm like, I am in my 40s and I ran 10 miles this morning and I still can kick someone in the head.
Yes.
Like, I can teach a self-defense class. Like, I'm not like sitting in my rocker waiting to fall to turn into dust. I'm like, there is a place for people to see themselves being older and still doing things. And I think, especially in fantasy, there is a desire for it.
Yes. And I love that too because like gosh, the female archetypes left to the older ages. It's crone, it's like
Mhm.
dithery. I'm thinking like Mrs. Potts or the maid from
Yeah,
Little Mermaid, like
like
just
a
like the
matron, a grandmotherly, like,
yeah, and not even like men get the mentor role. You know, you get your
hmm
bronze, you get your Irohs, you get your I was gonna say
yeah.
Yoda, he's not really
I mean,
man, but you know what I mean.
yes.
Like you get these older, very like I will pass down my wisdom to the younger generation roles,
hmm
and you don't necessarily see that with women. They tend to either be dithery and kind of useful or very evil, like
hmm
gone to the extreme of that. But what I loved is that we have a protagonist, she's older, but also I just felt like, oh my God, the stakes are so much higher. Like, not even considering you have to cancel your Spotify subscription, but like, she's got family, she's got partners, she's got people relying on her, she's got like, probably, I don't know, nieces and nephews, cousins. She's got this
Yeah.
whole life that no one was given any information about her whereabouts. She's already had a grandma disappear.
hmm
She's zoinked from her world. And I just kept thinking, with a younger protagonist, you don't have those stakes. They can pick up and leave in the same way that
hmm
we did in our early, like late teens,
Right.
early 20s. We could just move to Europe for a year and no one would blink an eye.
Right.
So it was actually really refreshing because I just felt like the grief is greater right off the bat. You are grieving the life that you lost.
Yeah. And actually, in the first draft, I had written her much more established, like she was in a happy marriage. She'd been married for 15 years. Like she was happy with her life. She was doing a job she loved. And it was too much. Like the readers were like, we really want to root for this new relationship. But like no matter how much time has passed, like for her to have lost all of this was just too much for us.
Hmm.
And so I tweaked it a little bit. And it actually worked out well for the story because Imogen then got to find herself
Yes.
like it worked for the arc a little bit more. But that's also why I had Scylla as like a foil to her. Scylla's her younger, who ends up being her BFF, her 23-year-old friend. And it was like, this is how it's supposed to go down.
Hmm.
Like they're supposed to come take people from Earth who want to come. And they
Yeah.
usually look for younger, less attached people so that they won't have to deal with, usually gently, not in Imogen's case, but they usually try to gently sever the attachments and spread a little story so that
Hmm.
everyone's okay with it. And Imogen didn't get any of that. But I did think about it. I was like, when all these people are yoinked from their lives, like what happens to everyone left behind? Like you just
Yeah.
assume like she went on a run and never came back. They probably assumed she was kidnapped.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And just the yeah, it was nice that she was leaving a life she didn't love for sure. But having that new person decide a lot of things for her right off the bat, you're also feeling
Yeah.
like quite, I felt very icky. We spoke about this before we put the cameras on. I felt so icky thinking like, no, 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 she needs to have some choice. You've taken everything from her, and
Yeah.
now you're also presuming what her next step is going to look like. And so with that in mind, what role does female agency specifically have in your novel?
So it was really interesting because I wrote this years ago, the original version, of course. And as with everything, it takes a while to get published. But when I wrote it, I was writing Al, who is, I guess, we'll call him an antagonist. He's the one who kidnaps her. Initially, he really truly thinks he's doing what's best for Imogen.
Hmm.
Like, he's like, no, this is going to be fine. And once you see, like, you're not going to get old. You're going to have time to do all these things you want to do, and you can be a princess. Like, come on. And he really firmly believes he's doing the right thing, but he is not considering her at all.
Mm-mm.
And he took everything away. He took her whole, and he was just like, look, I didn't have time. And he has all these rationales, and they all make sense. But so this published, as we say, last year. And I find it's really interesting so I'm in the United States, and as everyone can see, it's a dumpster fire over here.
Mhm.
They literally just Tennessee introduced a law that makes abortion punishable by the death penalty. It did not pass
Oh, thank God.
yet, but the fact that that's even on the table,
Yeah.
and Tennessee's abortion laws, by the way, are already incredibly strict. Like, so it's not like anyway, it's
Hmm.
not like we're talking about third term abortions here. We're talking very, very early. Um, and medical necessary, like there's already no, it's all about controlling women.
Yes.
And then you look at the other things they're trying to pass where you have to have your passport and identification to vote. And if you've changed your name, that becomes very difficult. If your name doesn't match what's on your birth certificate, then you're going to have a harder time voting. And already people who are married, now I didn't change my name. So like this doesn't personally affect me, but
Yeah.
it affects a lot of my friends and it affects a lot of women. So already people are trying to apply for passports and some of them are having problems. Like their husbands look at the passport right away,
Oh my
their passport's getting
gosh.
delayed. So it's like you can feel this like,
It's like a tightening net.
yeah.
Hmm.
And what are our representatives doing? Anyway, but so it's interesting that this book came out like while all of this is happening because you can see like no one like Imogen's agency is, as you said, completely stripped in the beginning. And then she does find allies and that's one reason we love Wells is because he is all about giving her her choices
Hmm.
because he recognizes that she didn't get any. And for the most part, the Molnarian society does not agree with that, but it's all
Hmm.
shoved under the rug because Al is a person in power. He is the prince. The
What?
king shoves it under the rug, like for political reasons. So it's all, and if you look at like what's going on with the Epstein files and everything, it's like,
Yeah.
wow, powerful men with money really do have the ability to
Mhm.
just shove things under the rug. So when you see Imogen pushing back and
Yeah.
finding her own little loopholes, it's very gratifying. And the book is a romp basically once you get past those first chapters. It's fun, but I do think that's a catharsis that people
Mhm.
just kind of need right now.
Yes.
So it is interesting that it came out during this time.
And I will say too, the way that um she regains control in using feminine means. Like, and what I mean by that is she builds community. She like reaches out. She has those moments of breakdown where people can come support her, but also one of her powers is very female coded, like the empathy piece,
Hmm.
empath piece, which I don't want to give too much away, so I'm being very careful with my words. But I really loved that even though she does end up being very powerful and very strong, and she was as a human, she was a kickboxing champion, she was a runner, and I just loved that you made sure that it wasn't just for her to get her agency back. She just had to be a Sarah Connor or like,
Right,
a very manly woman. It was like, no, no, she uses femininity to then empower herself, which
right.
again, I felt very, like you say, it was a very cathartic to be like, yes, the feminine power will work.
Yeah, and that is one reason I put Scylla in as her BFF as well, because I wanted there to be, because I have always been the very dynamic, very action like focused girly, but that is not the only way to kick ass.
Hmm.
And we need the other kind of ass kicking as well. And that's why I put Scylla in there, because she's like, you saved me at the very beginning, like when you offered me friendship when I was all alone.
Hmm.
And, and all of those little connections. So we had her friend who's like, I'm not a big badass. And she's like, you are a badass.
Yeah.
In just different ways. And so, yeah, I really liked that. And one of the things I also really enjoy that Imogen does is she figures out when people are underestimating her and just leans in.
Hmm.
Like, oh, okay, this is what you think. We're just going to lean in until I am like under your nose doing what I want to do.
Oh, definitely. And it was like they were playing checkers and then she'd come in with her bishop and just bop, 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 play chess. It was very delicious to read, I will say. It made me think of what you were saying about Scylla made me think of there's an interview with Elle Fanning when she's talking about being Sleeping Beauty in those live action the Maleficent movies.
Okay.
And she was like, there's a strength in femininity that we often don't see because on the movie screen, to be strong as a woman is like, I'm gonna punch it really hard, I'm gonna push down my emotions, and I'm gonna just
Right.
suck it up. But no, I really love that because there is such a strength in the gentleness and the ability to know when you just listen and then know when it's your turn to speak. Like it's,
Yeah.
and sometimes you have to take your turn.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I do think that is one reason why the like manly girl has risen. It's almost like if you're being oppressed, you have to like beat your oppressors.
Yes. Things.
And so I think that's one reason that has arisen, but I am glad that we are starting to let women have nuance.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, yes, I still like to kick butt, but
Yes. Well, and if you've only ever seen the people who win kick butt, it's easy to think the only way to win is to kick butt.
right.
But but there is a lot of other ways to win. It's just we often don't get the chance when you're being beaten down to try
Yes.
them. So, yeah. Yeah, and so switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about the magic and the spaceship aspects of
Yeah.
your world because I feel like I could talk about the female aspect all day.
Forever.
But
Yes.
yeah, but what really struck me, and I said this before, what really struck me is that I'm more of a fantasy girly and I don't often read books about space, but this was magic in space. So it kind of like ticked two very cool, what I thought were contradictory boxes and put them in one. What kind of considerations did you have to keep in mind when you're combining that sci-fi sci-fi setting almost with a magic system.
So I honestly, so I'm a pantser, and for anyone who doesn't know, there's plotters and pantsers. It's a style of writing. So plotters like to have everything listed out, and pantser, it means you're basically writing by the seat of your pants. And so that's how I usually go. And so I honestly, to begin with, and this is kind of how I roll. I didn't think about it too much. I wanted basically Faye in space. And so I was like, this is what I want, and this is what I'm writing. And then as I started having people read it, I started getting all these questions. I had some people who were like, well, wouldn't it be easier if instead of another planet, you took her to a different dimension and then you just don't need the space aspect and it can just be a fantasy? And I was like, but I want the magic space battle.
I
Like,
don't think you're hearing me.
I was like,
Magic in
that is
space.
like the best scene. Like, I had such a great time writing it. I don't want to take it out. And I do think that is one reason that, it's harder to get that kind of book published is because it's different and
Hmm.
people don't know what box to put it in. But I do think that's why it's so much fun. So basically I did I did think about a few things. And so I threw a couple things in for sciencey people. Because I do read sci-fi, but I like my sci-fi soft, like I like my cheese. So I like, for instance, windows in space are a big no-no, like because you can't pressurize them.
Mm.
And so I just like it was like magic can pressurize anything, so it's magic. And then it's like, I wanted it to be impossible for Imogen to get back to Earth. That was like a thing that I had to have. And so I was like, well, they're only going to go every 100 years because of space and the way things line up. So I just threw some language in there about wormholes and movements of planets and things like that. And I was like, one thing I learned, and this is actually pretty cool. I've met John Scalzi a couple times. He's a wonderful human, and I am Facebook friends with him. And I we were editing this book, and I had made the sky purple or something, and my editor really liked that. But then I think I had the water also purple in some scenes. And I was like, wait, can I do that? Like, why is the sky purple? And I'm looking up these things about Raytheon particles and like all this stuff. And I messaged Scalzi and I was like, I have a question. And if you're busy, like, please feel free to ignore me. Like, I was like, my editor's really like this. Like, what do I do? Like, why would the sky be purple? And he basically wrote back. He was so nice. And he wrote back immediately. And he was like, don't over explain it. He's like,
Hmm.
unless this is pertinent to your plot, like if it's a key plot point, because if you start over explaining it, then people will pick apart your over explanation. If you
Yes.
just say the sky is purple and move on, no one's going to think about it. And he's like, enough people know about Raytheon particles and stuff like that. I'm probably saying it wrong.
Yeah.
He's like that it like that any sciencey people will probably accept the sky being purple. So that's kind of how I have just done my stuff. Like I put enough of like a veneer on things like that it's there and it's acknowledged. Because I think another thing is just to not acknowledge things as weird sometimes
Yeah.
is will throw people off. So I had Wells explain how they were moving, why they couldn't go back. And then I think I had some, language about her imagining Keen being on the ship or something and how he would want to know how the windows are pressurized and blah, blah, blah. And then I just kind of, so I acknowledge them and then I let them go. Like, it's like, yes, I know about this. It's magic. Forget about it.
Hmm.
And we're just going to have a good time. So that's kind of how I've done it. I make sure there's no like obnoxious things. I try to make it make sense to like a logical person's mind, and then I let it go. If it's not going to affect the story.
I adore that because I also think the whole point of magic is it defies logic. And
Mhm.
I think, like you say, the instinct is to over-explain so that you're giving your reader like, oh no, here, please accept my magic system. But the best magic systems I've ever read or seen, like I love anything Studio Ghibli magic. They're just like, this is happening now. And you're thinking, okay, perfect. This is where yep, I'm on board.
Yeah.
So I
Well, and
love that.
Imogen doesn't care,
No.
right? She's like, I am on a spaceship. I didn't want to be on a spaceship. I would like to go back to Earth. I cannot go back to Earth. She doesn't care how things work. Like, she's
And it's
like,
almost
okay,
to
they're
her,
slicing bread with magic. That's cool. I will look at that. But other than that, she's like, I am in shock. Like,
Yes.
I am managing. I don't care about these things. And so I think it's okay for the reader to not care
Hmm. And it's
in
to
this
her benefit
instance.
a lot of times. It's to her benefit to not question it because then, like, she finds out a lot of her powers just by being like, well, I saw you do it, so I did it. And then, boom,
Yeah,
I did it too. So you're welcome, I guess. Like, if she's overthinking it, then it wouldn't work that way. So it's
right.
actually a strength that she's not asking too many questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I had fun building it.
I love that. And then with the fact that we go from Earth, which is a very familiar setting,
Hmm.
and then we zhuzh across space via wormholes and planet alignment, which you got to know, I was on board for. I'm like, yep, checks out. That is how I would travel in space too. It just makes sense. You know, you hear wormhole, you think that's a secret door.
Right?
And right, yeah. So, what advice would you give to aspiring authors who are looking to set their novel on another planet?
So I actually I have a whole class that I teach on like building a magic system and fantasy backdrops and things like that. The things that these are the challenges I had and how I overcame them because my first book was set in Earth in Chicago and there were just ghosts there. So all I had to worry about was the magic system. Um, and when you're going to a new planet, I also, this is a me problem. I focus on character and dialogue first. And if we could all just banter in white rooms and I could write books that way, like that would be wonderful. But like people want like backdrop, which I get. And so I tend to color everything in after everything's written. Um, and whoops, my postcard's falling down. But also, I found out fantasy people really freaking care about the food and what people are wearing. This was
Yes.
probably like the biggest I had with my editor. They were like, "Can you make the food? Like, can you describe?" Like, I have one point they're just eating a meal, and she's like, "Can you describe the food?" And I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, make it different." And like, and then like the clothes, like at one point they're like, "Oh, what are they wearing? It's different." I was like, "Can it just be a tunic?" Like, like, and so I had to
Tunic
describe
and
like how
leggings,
the
obviously.
once I started getting into it, it was a little bit fun because I was like, what would have like come over? Because I did take a little bit of a shortcut. My um, aliens, the she, were originally on Earth, and then they found a way to leave Earth because the humans kept like demanding magic of them and whatever. So they left and started their own planet. So they were influenced by Earth. And I was like, what would
Mhm.
have like come over? And they go back every 100 years, so they might, bring stuff with them. And some things they didn't, like they didn't bring any electronics. They were like, no
Love
radios,
that.
none of that. Like
Hmm.
everyone had to leave that behind. They have magic for that sort of thing, but chopsticks made it over. But basically for like finger food, if you didn't want to get your fingers dirty, and like so fun things like that I got to kind of like play with. But then I started doing too much, and my editors were like, "All right, we're gonna have to cut some of this." So the big thing about the planet though was when I first made it, everyone was like, "This is very Earth-like," because I basically was like, "I'm gonna make a place that I would like to live." And it's like, so there's no cars, that's great. There's horses, that's great. There's dogs. Buildings all look like the French Quarter, cool. And then they're like, this looks very much like Earth. And so I was like, okay, the trees can be different colors. And they're like, still very much like Earth. And so it was that kind of thing. And what I've discovered is like when you have a different planet, um, people want to know why it's different, like how is it different from Earth? And um, and why it is like if something is Earth-like, why is it Earth-like?
Mm.
So originally I called coffee coffee, and one of my early readers was like, if coffee came over from Earth, like if they brought coffee with them and they still call it coffee, I want to know why coffee. And so I was like, okay, we'll call it Jatke and we'll be done with that.
Yeah.
Um, and so that because I was like, it's not that important. So I'll
Hmm.
just give it a different name. It'll be coffee like, and that makes sense, and whatever. So that's basically like it's a lot of like, what do you want? What do you need? in your
Mm.
planet that's similar and what can be different. And I do think, to everyone's point, food and clothing can be different, and that makes it a lot easier. Modes of transportation, like you want to think about how your people get around. Like, so if they have magic, like they wink everywhere. They don't
Hmm.
need like a high-speed rail. Like they have boats for like long distances. They have their airships and things like that because not everyone can wink to a different country, but moving large batches of people, but they don't need cars. They can port letters to each other. They don't need texting. So it's like the abilities of your society and how your society evolves. So I still say character first,
Hmm.
figure out where your story is, and then build the world to support it.
Yes, totally. Especially because I feel like fantasy is the genre where when you know the message you want to convey to your readers, you then build the world to convey that message. Like for my books, I wanted to convey a lot of messages about gender inequality, and so I could build the world that would support that idea of prejudice and how silly it is.
Right.
If you're trying to do that in the real world, you have to do a lot of twisting because you're already working with systems that are in place, with like
Yes.
even locations that are in place. Whereas I love you went to a whole new planet and you had all those opportunities to tweak things that did matter to what you needed to convey. But then the things that don't matter but are fun, you can have a different word for coffee. You can have, like, I love that horses made it over because I'm just like, of course they did. They're so
Yeah.
useful and so fun. I was just trying to
Yeah.
imagine them in the ship. Like, were they in the boxing room? Just yeah, no, I love that because that's why we have fantasy. It is
Mhm.
a tailorable space for the message that we want to convey, which then I wanted to throw to you. What message are you hoping readers take away from your novel?
So I obviously I'd like you would love it if people I've learned that people don't read critically very often, but you'd love it if people take a look um, at the world around them and the agency that they have, the agency that they are allowing the people around them to have, and our society as a whole. I also very much right now would like to I would like people to say there is still a way. It may be a
Mhm.
small way. It may be like a long ways away. It may be very hard, and you may feel like you are insignificant and you are one person, but you cannot stop. Just do not just roll over and accept what we are being given. Find ways to resist in small, small ways, and keep fighting for the things that you love and the life that you want and the life that you want other people to have.
I love that. And it's so true. And I love too that in every character you show, like we were talking before, Scylla shows a different kind of strength. I would argue
Mhm.
Wells is a really lovely depiction of see something, say something. Like he's seeing
Mhm.
this injustice. He knows he has a role he can play, even if it's to his own detriment, and he plays that role.
And
Um,
Captain Mark is the senator we all wish we had.
yes, oh, I love Captain Marcus, but he
Oh,
was delightful. Did you base him off of anyone in particular?
I did. I have my best friend in Chicago. His name's Charles, and he's a little bit older than me. He's obviously Captain Mark is black. Charles is black, and Charles like a lot of his features came from my friend Charles. But Charles was always the person that I went to when I needed like sanity check.
Ah,
Like when you have those friends who are like gonna give you good advice.
yes.
But so Captain Mark was based a lot on Charles because it's like we need the one character who is in a semi position of power. Like
Hmm.
he's still below the king, but he's carved out a place for himself. Who is who who like knows the rules and is still empathetic and knows what rules he can't break,
Yes.
but knows ways around them and is able to support people. And he gets a bigger role in the next book and the final book as well.
Amazing. Yeah, you're so right. You need that. It's almost like the person who can see through the minutia and just
Hmm.
get to the heart of, there's the people who follow rules because the rule is there, and there's the people who know why the rule is there and then know how to
Right.
go either with it or circumvent it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and I feel like sometimes you just need someone who's just outside of the crazy circle
Yes.
that everyone else is mixed in to give a little bit of clarity. And so, yeah,
I love that. Oh, very cool. And then do you have a favorite quote or passage you can share with us?
I do. So, I whoop, this book is beautifully designed by Marianne Apple, and I did little epigraphs at the top of each book, and each book has a different chapter art depending on who is saying the epigraph. And a lot of them are Imogen's grandmother, because she's a very influential figure in Imogen's life, even though she's no longer with us at the very beginning of the book. And so there's a lot of her advice. There's some from her grandfather. There's even one from her dad and one from Keen, who she leaves behind. And um, every chapter has a different one. And I think my favorite one is at the very end, the last chapter. Imogen gets one,
Amazing.
and it says, "Sometimes you got to be your own damn superhero." And she gets her own little lightning. And I saved,
Ah,
so that's her only time getting a quote in the book at the very beginning. And I loved it. And I think it's true.
I love that. And it's also a lot of what we've been talking about, right? Like when everything is dumpster firing around you, there is always a next right step for every individual.
Yes,
You can always just do one thing right and kind and true and courageous and in your capacity.
right,
But if everyone started doing that, it would change the world.
right.
Mhm. And so, what projects are coming up for you next, and where can we find more information about it online?
So I have the sequel coming out in just a few days. Horn of Onyx, because Dagger does end on a cliffhanger. And yes, there are violent unicorns in Horn of Onyx. I am very excited about it. The book launches on March 31st at Parnassus. And I am doing a pre order event. So if anyone wants to pre order, you get a special pre order bookmark. And if you pre order from a bookstore that I'm going to be at, obviously the bookmarks will be there. But if you pre order from anywhere, just send me your like pre-order receipt and I will mail you a bookmark. And I have all of that information on my website, which is meredithraylyons.com, and Ray is RAE.
But I'll put all that information in the description in the Spotify link and the YouTube link and on my newsletter. So it's if you haven't found it, you're just not looking. It is so exciting. I think that is one of the most beautiful covers I've seen in a very long
I
time.
am so excited about this cover. Like, and my mom is coming to the launch and she is baking unicorn cookies. So yeah, I
And
am super excited about it.
And everybody loves the unicorn. No, it's
Yeah.
honestly so beautiful. I remember seeing it on Instagram for the first time, and I think I contacted you immediately. I was like, "You've done it. You've made the most beautiful cover."
It's Marianne, not me. She did so good. But
Oh,
I did have like I did have a lot of input, which was nice. And I was like,
yeah. But
yeah,
thank you so much for coming on. It's been such a
thank you for
treat.
having me. It's been a wonderful, wonderful Saturday morning.
Right? Wonderful. We needed just some cartoons in the background. It would have been perfect.
Yeah.
And also, thank you to everyone who sat with us and listened or watched. If you liked
Absolutely.
what you heard or liked what you saw, please take a minute to pass it along to a like-minded friend. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. Every like, subscribe, follow helps us word of mouth get out to more people so that they can also celebrate great books like A Dagger of Lightning. I release new episodes once a month with no set date. So the best way to not miss anything is to make sure you're following or subscribing. However you wound up here, I hope you are well and living magically.